Hey guys, so in this video I wanted to go over the quiz review for tomorrow. So question 1 through 4 is giving us f of a number and we're trying to evaluate according to the graph off to the right. So for the first one, if we're given f of -4, that is the same thing as saying f of x. So that is telling us x equals -4. Well, when we go to our graph, we're looking for x is -4. So our x-axis is our horizontal axis. We're going to go over to -4. X is -4. Our y is +2. So our answer for the first one will be 2. Now for the second one. The second one is telling us x will equal -1. So what is our y when x is -1? Well, we're going to go to our graph. We're going to find where x is -1. So there's our -1. Well, what is our y? Our y is down here at -2. Or -1, my bad. -1. So our x value is -1, our y value is also -1. So there's a point there. So our y value is -1. For 3, this is telling us our x is 0. So what is our y? Well, when we come to our graph, x is 0 at the origin. We are not coming down here to where our open circle is because there's not a dot there. So that's not where we're going to find our y value. Our y value is going to be up here where y is 1 because there is a closed circle there. So when x is 0, y is 1. And then lastly, number 4. Number 4 is asking us when x is 3, y is what? So x-axis, x is 3, 1, 2, 3, +3. Where is my y value? All the way up here to 1, 2, and about 2.5. So +2.5 is my y value. So then we have to go to the hard part. And now, if you need it, pause the video so you can get where I got those answers, 1 through 4. Because now we want to create a piecewise for this graph. So I first want to take my first step, which is this red one off to the left side. Now, I've got to identify what the y-intercept is and the slope. The reason why I have to do the y and the slope is because I want to plug in to my slope-intercept form. So my b is the easiest one. Y-intercept is going to intercept the y-axis at -2. So my b is -2. My x is always going to be there. My slope, going up from this 0, -2 point to my next point, which is at -1, 1, -1, -1, I go up 1 to the right 1. So because I went up 1, it's +1, and because I went to the left 1, it's -1. So to write it kind of like I just said it, our numerator is going to be +1 because we're going up, and then -1 because we went to the left. So to simplify, we have -1x minus 2. Do we need to have that 1 there? 1 times anything is itself, so we do not have to write that 1. So to simplify one more time, we have -x minus 2. And that is for our first step. but we don't have a equation or a line that goes on forever. Our equation stops where x is 0, and it also does not include when x is 0, but it is all of the x values that are less than 0. So our restriction for this is going to be x is less than 0, and it is not or equal to because it's not a closed circle. So this would be our equation on our restriction for the first step. Now for the second step, I'm going to ignore everything that we have on the other side because we're just worried about this blue one off to the right. Again, we want to find our slope, or our m, and our b, which is our y-intercept. So our b is the easiest one. Again, y-axis intersecting at that +1, so +1 is our b. Always have our x there. Now our slope. Our next point, or our pretty point, is what I call it in class. The next point that has whole numbers as our ordered pair. We're going to go up 1, so it's going to be positive. So we're going to have up 1 as our numerator. And then we're going to go to the right 2. So that's going to be +2. So right 2. That's always going to equal that y. To simplify, we don't have to have all of those arrows in there. Now we have 1/2 x plus 1. This one we cannot simplify, so that is our equation. Then we have to put our restrictions in there. So our restrictions for step 2 is where our x is 0 and our x is getting bigger. So x can equal 0. It can also be bigger than 0. So there is our equation for step 2. But, kind of like I mentioned today, if you gave me these two different equations just like I wrote it, it would be wrong, because our question asks, write the piecewise with the restrictions. This is not a piecewise how we have it written so far. We have to create one. So we'll have to come in here and say f of x. You could put y, that's fine, equals our little squiggly negative x minus 2 with the restriction of x is less than 0. Then we have 1/2 x plus 1, where x is greater than or equal to 0. And there's your piecewise for number 5. For number 6, we are going to be graphing that piecewise. So first thing, I want to create a table. So I'm just going to speak through or talk through the steps that you would do on the calculator. Then I'm going to show you on the screen. So if you were using your calculator, you would go to y equals, and you would type in the equation that's given. So negative 1/2 x minus 3. That is what you would put in there. So negative parentheses, or you could just put 0.5 x minus 3. Then once you have your equation in there, you're going to go to second graph to go to your table. And then you are looking up for x is 2. You do have to include when x is 2. So if we wanted to create a table to help us graph this, it would be 2 at -4. This would be our open circle. And then when x is less than 2, so we've got 0, -3, -2, -2. Now, if you do not have a calculator, or you don't want to use a calculator, you could substitute the values in. So if I wanted to know what my y value is, if x is 2, then I would substitute in. So I have -1/2 times 2 minus 3. Well, -1/2 times 2 gives me -1 minus 3 gives me -4. So you can do either way. Hopefully you would be able to accomplish both ways, but I'm not going to tell you have to use one way or the other. Then we go on to the second step. So our second step gives us 2x minus 4. We can simply substitute in values. So 2 times 2 is 4, minus 4 gives us 0. Or we can use our calculator. Again, I'm going to talk you through it if you're using a calculator at home. So go to y equals, clear out what you had already typed in, type 2x minus 4, go to second graph to see your table. You have x equals 2, so kind of like we already figured out. When x is 2, you're going to have a closed circle because of the or equal to part of our restriction. And x can be greater than, so we're looking for 3, 2, and 4, 4. Now these are linear equations, so I'm okay if you stopped at 2 points. But for things like quadratics, you would need to have enough points to show the curve. So now we're going to graph those points. So we're going to start with the purple. For the first step we had, well, let me create our x and y intercept. 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's our y-intercept. There's our x-intercept. So for our first step, we have 2 to -4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's going to be an open circle. Then we have 0, -3. Then I have -2, -2. And then this graph is going to keep going to the left forever. And so it's going to go all the way to the left, like that. Then we have our second step. Our second step starts at 2, 0. And it's a closed circle because that or equal to. Then we have at 3, 2. And 4, 4. And our second step is going to go to the right forever. So this would be our graph for number 6. All right. Then we have number 7. Number 7, we're given a piecewise, and we want to evaluate it. So we are given f of -1. F of -1 tells us our x is -1. We are looking at our first step. Is -1 less than or equal to -1? Yes. So we are going to be in our first step. So we're going to substitute it in. So we've got 3 times -1 plus 4. 3 times -1 is -3 plus 4 gives us 1. So our answer is 1. Going on to step or number B. F of 4 tells us x equals 4. So is 4 less than or equal to -1? No. Is 4 greater than -1? Yes. So we'll be in the second step. And we're substituting 4 in for x, so negative. Substituting 4 in plus 2. Negative times a positive, it is a negative, so we'll have -4 plus 2. And then we'll end up with -2. So our answer is -2 for B. And then lastly, C. C tells us that we have x equals -4. Then we have to ask, first up, -4 is less than or equal to -1. This is correct. If you have difficulties with negatives, either you can look at the number line that is on the back board, or you can make your own number line on your piece of paper. So we have 0, 1, -1, -2, -3, -4. 4 is a lot more to the left versus our -1. -4 is less than -1. So our statement is correct. So we are looking in our first step of our piecewise. So we've got 3, substituting -4 in, plus 4. Negative times a positive is a negative, and 3 times 4 is 12, plus 4. So we end up with 8, -8. So -8 is our answer for C. Alright, and then this is the word problem we focused on. We plan to sell Clayton High School t-shirts as a fundraiser. The t-shirt company charges you $9 a shirt for the first 70 shirts. After the first 70 shirts, you purchase up to 125 shirts. The company will lower its price to $6.50 per shirt. After you purchase 125 shirts, the price will decrease to $4 per shirt. So we have to create our piecewise first. So we've got to create our equations. So the first sentence, I'm going to highlight or underline in blue. That first sentence is going to be named our blue equation. We're going to create that equation from there. So the t-shirt company charges you $9 a shirt for the first 70. That includes 70. So we have y equals $9 times however many shirts there are. So we're going to have x represent the number of t-shirts ordered. The restriction for this equation is that that's only when our x is less than or equal to 70. So there is our first equation and restriction. And then the second or the third sentence is going to be named our green equation. And this green is going to be our second equation that we create. After the first 70 shirts, you purchase up to 125 shirts. The company will lower its price to $6.50. So we have y equals $6.50 times how many shirts you buy. So that is our x. And that is going from 70 shirts to 125. So our x has to be greater than 70, but also less than 125. and it's actually going to include 125. So I understand that it says purchase up to 125 shirts, but if you read the last sentence, it says after you purchase 125 shirts, the price will decrease it to $4 per shirt. So for our second one, let's say it's this pinkish color or reddish color, whatever. You have Y equals $4 times the number of shirts you're going to order. This is only when the number of shirts you're going to order is above 125. So now we have to put all of this together into one piecewise instead of all separate. So f of x equals, we got our little squiggly going on. We have 9x when x is less than or equal to 70. Then we have 6.5 times the number of shirts when x is greater than 70 and less than or equal to 125. Then lastly, when we have purchased over 125, it is $4 times our number of shirts when x is greater than 125. So then we have to answer some questions with that piecewise. How much would 55 t-shirts cost? So that is referring it to x equaling 55. So how much would it cost? Well, looking at our first step, is that 55 less than or equal to 70? Yes. So we're looking at our first step, which is 9 times our 55, which gives us $495. So that would be our answer for B. Then C, if Mr. Farrell wants to order a t-shirt for every student, how much money would he have to give the company? So for this one, we have 2,050 t-shirts that we're ordering. So we're looking at the third step. Now, if you can't skip to the third step and know that it's above that 125, you can go through each step. So 2,050 is bigger than 70, so it's not less than or equal to. 2,050 is greater than 70, but it's not less than or equal to 125 in step 2. So it has to be step 3, where 2,050 t-shirts are greater than 125. So we are looking at the third step. So we have $4 times how many t-shirts we're ordering. And we get $8,200 as our answer. And then lastly, Miss Digby wants to order 10 t-shirts from this company to give away at the homecoming game. How much would it cost her? So we're going to go where X equals 10. And by the way, because I forgot to do it for C, X is equaling that 2,050. So for D, number of t-shirts we're ordering is 10. So we're looking at step 1. Is 10 less than or equal to 70? Yes. So 10 less than or equal to 70? Yes. So we're in the first step. So 9 times our 10 shirts, or $9 times our 10 shirts, gives us $90 overall for our free t-shirts. Again, if y'all have any questions, email me and I will try my best to answer.